perfect prospect pairings. Boise State star running back Ashton Jeanty would be a perfect fit for the Dallas Cowboys. Why? We're going to have this and other perfect pairings and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parsons. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we bring you championship level content each and every single day, man. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated over here with DP. We got perfect pairings, man. We're going to pick the prospect. We're going to pick the team. And we're going to tell you why it needs to happen, right, to elevate those NFL teams. Then we're going to talk about what are the biggest draft storylines after week 6, right? We have pretty much half of a resume put together, and what are our biggest takeaways, right, to know and to be able to move forward with. And then we're going to bring back classic segment. Like I always say, my name's not on it, but it's my favorite segment. Dames, dudes, we're putting DP on the hot seat, asking if these guys are in the club or if he's kicking them out. DP, if you can tell, man, I'm excited for this show. Let's go ahead and get this thing started.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Perfect pairings. Keith, I went through so many different scenarios and situations. This was tough because there's so many exciting different pairings that came to my mind. But I wanted to go a little off kilter. I like to take the dive off the deep board, Keith. And Harold Fannin Jr., tight end, Bowling Green, 6'4", 230. Talked about him a good bit on this pod. And for me, when I think about Harold Fannin, the tight end of the Bowling Green, I said, man, if there's any team that could use a tight end right now, I think it's the New York Jets. Mm-hmm. The New York Jets and Harold Fannin Jr. For me, Keith, if I could put Harold Fannin Jr. in this offense, of course, the offense doesn't look great right now. And some of that is, hey, we watched the OC when he was the head coach at Denver not do so great. I don't know why you expected everything to be a little bit different with Nathaniel Hackett. Oh, well,
that's a gem right there. That's a gem right there, DP.
I just feel like we should have just followed the breadcrumbs and the evidence, or as the old folks say, it's the proof is in the pudding, and it was not good, and it's not good right now in New York. But I think for them, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Alan Lazard. The running back situation there is a little weird. I might think, as a runner, I think Braylon Allen is a better runner than Breece Hall is. I think Breece Hall should be more of the change of pace back. I'm gonna be
it's almost like that's kind of what we thought coming out, right? That's what we said. Breece Hall was a very specific type of runner in specific type of situations, and I feel as though, right, that's playing out right now. And I agree with you that it should be. They should look at it almost as a thunder and lightning situation, right? Mm-hmm. And these are two different profiles. But I remember, was that Lindell White and Chris Johnson right back? And I'm not saying either one of these guys are Chris Johnson, but what I'm saying is you might want to split the backfield up like that, right? Like you said, make Braylon Allen the starting running back, and then let Breece Hall get your 15 carries, and hopefully he has one explosive one that kind of balances out all of the other 2 and 3 yard
ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, those type of things. And we said that coming out of Iowa State, and everybody's like, oh, he's a top 10 pick. It's like, okay, cool. Just y'all could believe that.
Yeah, I was never on board with that. And I like Breece. I do like Breece Hall, but I think he's more suited as a multi-touch type of running back and not someone I want to give 20 carries to, but maybe 20 touches, 10 carries, 10 targets or something like that. But I think putting Harold Fannin in this offense, he works for the zone run game. That's where Breece Hall is really at his best anyway, attacking the outside shoulder of the tackles and tight ends. But getting a guy that can, like, they have Tyler Conklin, and they just have some okay veterans at the tight end spot. Put put Harold Fannin Jr. there. This guy has explosiveness. He's got NFL size, strength. I think he's a developing and growing route runner. He also had in the game this past Saturday, Keith. He had 9 catches, 135 yards, 2 carries for 37 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Right, and just for those who haven't been keeping up with the Bowling Green tight end, Keith, his only game that he didn't catch over 100 yards was week 0 rather, and he caught 6 for 67. After that, 130. 145, 192, 135. He is an absolute weapon for Bowling Green's offense, and I think he would be a perfect fit in that Jets offense, especially I'll say this, even if they ended up drafting a quarterback, let's say day 2, you know what I mean? Aaron Rodgers said, I'm coming back in 2025. You need to still add a quarterback because he's not going to play that much longer. I still want to put a tight end in this offense and just kind of make this receiving core and receiving situation a little bit more well-rounded.
Yeah. Now, does that have to? Is it? I guess I should say tied into the quarterback situation also. Like, are you saying with Aaron Rodgers, do you believe that he'll get him the football? Like, because historically, I think that's been a thing of that. I believe people said that, right? Just as far as how he utilizes the tight ends and things like that. But do you think that he'll thrive? And obviously he'll be playing with another quarterback too, right? If he extends that part of a career. But
I think if he can, get that trust from Aaron Rodgers, A-Rod, especially in like camp, mini camp, training camp, stuff like that. I think that he could be that security blanket for him, that outlet, that quick outlet. And he's really good with the ball in his hands after the catch as well. And I think Aaron Rodgers has had guys like that, whether a receiver or tight end, like guys that can make plays after the catch. And I think if he gave him the targets, he would quickly fall in love with what this young man can do.
Yeah, I like that, DP. I'm going to go with, and this might be a little prelude to my mock draft this week. I'm going to go with Ashton Jeanty to the Dallas Cowboys. Needs to happen. Have to make it happen. The Dallas Cowboys in a position where they have a lot of problems and not a lot of solutions, DP. And whether they win or not, right? Like, continue to win or not throughout the season, the problems are the problems, right? The situations are the situations. And the only way out of this for them is through the draft, right? So you have to go and get these playmakers because you pay CeeDee Lamb, you pay Dak Prescott, you still have to pay Micah Parsons, right? Unless you're not going to pay him. I don't know what you're going to do with that. But the running back situation, this is year 2, kind of year 3-ish, where y'all haven't had a good running back. And if you're going to pay Dak all that money, get him the weapons, right? You have CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver. You still need a wide receiver 2 and 3 at the end of the day. But you might as well get that dominant running back to say, hey, we're going to have this run game. We're going to do play action, right? And we're going to win like that. And you just do a blast from the past to when it was 2016, 2017, right? And the Dallas Cowboys had one of the best run games. And like I said, Ashton Jeanty for me is just constantly moving up draft boards. Like it's getting to that part to where he's that guy where you have to stop him and you can't, right? When walking the stadium, everybody knows his name and know he's that guy. And then defenses just cannot stop him. So that's why I have him. And I'm like, hey, he's constantly elevating up draft boards.
Yeah, I think, and Keith, that's one that I think everybody right now is like kind of pointing towards. It's like Ashton Jeanty is probably going to be we might get to, depending on how. I mean, Marion Hampton's playing very well.
Yeah,
Ohio State split scary. So
yeah, Quinshawn is that situation is Ohio State is weird, and they're a team. I feel like you gotta make sure that they're good because they can get themselves into a situation because it looks like inconsistent, right? Like they set themselves up for that Ole Miss thing where they didn't really play anybody that can threaten them, and then the minute they play somebody that can threaten them, then it's like,
yeah. How do you respond when somebody punches you in the face?
Yeah,
to start the game. Yeah. Like that's going to be the situation for them. And could it be Oregon? Maybe, but I think with Jeanty, he's going to be, like I said, probably the one running back. If it's only one running back that's drafted in round 1, it's going to be Ashton Jeanty. And the Dallas Cowboys 100% is a team everybody's really like, man, like if anybody needs to make that move, it needs to be Dallas. So what do we sit there and say, Keith, after the draft? Dallas Cowboys let Tony Pollard walk. You didn't have any other running back on the roster. And you went through the entire 2024 NFL draft. Braylon Allen was drafted in the 4th round. Like, I promise you, behind this offensive line with Cooper B, Tyler Guyton, and all the guys you got up front, Braylon Allen would be successful. And not just successful, but get we consistently say this. Dak Prescott gets so much flack for wearing that darn star on his helmet, and it's not his fault that Jerry Jones hasn't built a playoff or Super Bowl contending team. And you sit there and want him to drop back 40 times and lead the team. We talked about this on yesterday's pod, Keith. Quarterbacks are not meant to carry the entire team. No one is doing that. This is not a video game. So, yes, Ashton Jeanty, 100%. You put him in Dallas, he is going to cook. And the comps I've seen, I haven't come up to a comp yet. I've seen LT. I've seen Barry Sanders. It's getting wild out here in these streets, Keith. It's getting wild, but I'm not mad about it. I'm all here for it, baby. I'm here for it. One of my running backs getting love. Oh, and then people saying he's better than Bijan. I'm like, hey, man, we are living in the what Skip Bayless used to say, prisoners of the moment.
Yeah.
Hey, man, let's not forget how nasty Texas Bijan really was. I don't care what the Falcons are doing. Texas Bijan was that guy.
Yeah, now we can't skip over that. But DP, let's get into these draft storylines, man. We're halfway through college football season. I mean, the prospects are halfway through their resumes, man. And we want to get into what are the biggest draft storylines, the biggest takeaways thus far. Let's talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you placed your bets. Guys, and I'm telling you right now, when you talk about placing bets, you can get in on the action with FanDuel Sportsbook right now. They just dropped their season awards betting odds. MVP for the regular season right now, you have Lamar Jackson at plus 650. Washington Commander fans, your boy Jaden Daniels is plus 1100. Jared Goff is plus 2200. You can get in on the live betting action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Guys, I'm telling you, this is a deal that you don't want to pass up on. All you need to do is go to FanDuel.com and get in on the action. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free. That's right, FREE free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and the history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and so much more. Guys, I can tell you right now, on their website, that one of the stories that I'm looking into enrolling and checking out is the literature Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. That's one of my favorite Christmas movie. Every year I watch it. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Biggest draft storylines after week 6 of college football, Keith. I think for me, man, the takeaway and the biggest storyline I came away with was the edge rusher position is going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Like, I know that some of the top guys, I think James Pierce did get a sack this past week in that close loss to Arkansas and stuff like that. For a while, like the first couple of weeks, it's like, man, where the top guys at? Where the dogs at? The guys that we had first round grades, top 10 projections and all that. And those guys are starting to come on. Abdul's been cooking, different things like that. But then then guys like Josiah Stewart, took that step forward. Jared Ivey over there at Ole Miss, Princely, Umami Millen, guy that nobody really talks about, Kyle Kennard over at South Carolina. I think you brought him up once or twice, Keith. You know what I mean? With that defensive line that they have over there at South Carolina. Yep. I think this edge rush group is going to be fine, right? You got Tyler Barron. Also, over there at Miami, who transferred from Tennessee, this is still a good group of guys. And a guy that I think he's making him some money is Antoine Powell-Ryland from Virginia Tech. 13 pressures, 2 QB hits, 5 sacks on the season. Guys are winning and getting their getting their numbers. And they're Ashton Gillette over at Louisville. This was a guy I liked a lot. I compared him to Marshawn Nealon in terms of how you could use him. So this edge rush group, I'm not saying that I think Abdul Carter right now, to me, I think Abdul Carter is the guy that I would expect. And, you know, talking to some of my guys in the league, I'm like, hey, how do y'all feel about, you know, Carter? Is like right now, like, as you know, he's probably more of a third down pass rusher rather than a 3-down edge. And everything was like, is he truly Micah Parsons? Are we gonna play him at stack backer for first and second down, and then on third down we're gonna walk him down and let him just get after it and be our third down go-to guy rusher? And that's kind of how the NFL is looking at him right now. James Pierce and some of those other guys have to consistently work their way up as, you know, the season goes on. But I think the edge rush group is going to be fine. We may not. I'm not going to say it's going to be like last year where we didn't get a defensive rusher until pick 15. But I could see that some of the top guys slip down a little bit, and we get more offensive guys, whether it's O-line, receivers, running back, quarterbacks, stuff like that. But I think the edge rush group's gonna be fine. I think the pass rush group's gonna be fine.
Okay, I like that you optimistic, DP, because I woke up on the bad side of the wrong side of the bed, DP. And with this draft storyline, right, is that my biggest storyline is that there's still so much more to be figured out. I just go back to drafts like that 2022 draft, right? And I'm gonna pull it up. And that was the draft with who's that? That was the Aiden Hutchinson, right? That was the Derek Stingley. That was the Kayvon Thibodeau. That was the Evan Neal, right? Which that doesn't bode well right now, but the Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Kyle Hamilton, and all of these guys were high-profile names that we knew that came into the season that performed well during the season, right? And I feel like we had a bunch of guys who was like, man, like these guys may have elite traits, right? Like Kyle Hamilton had maybe maybe the highest grade I've ever given a player prospect ever, right? And so now where we sit now is like, how do we feel, right? Like it's kind of just in between. Like I feel like we kind of going back and forth, and I'm wondering if I'm gonna get in a situation and I don't want to do this, right? I wonder the rest of the draft community is where I'm forcing stuff, right? And have the discipline to let my eyes be my eyes, right? Like, okay, he's good, but would he have been good in this class? Or is he good or great, right? And is he great in this class because it's all I have to work with? You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm looking at it from that perspective. It's like halfway through is like, man, I wish I would have had a little bit more from certain positions, like even the wide receiver position. Like Travis Hunter has kind of went off. You know, Teodoro McMillan has did his thing. Luther Burden is trying to turn it up, right? Like he's, you know what I'm saying? He's making efforts and strides to turn it up. And then outside of that is names that were kind of off the radar, right? Like your Ty Feltons and wide receivers like that, Jack Beshes. And so it's still so much more to figure out to be able to like, hey, okay, here's a complete 32 for the first round. And right now, I don't know if I have a complete 32 before I start getting into like deep second round, maybe high third round grades.
Yeah, I think where it's headed is that, you know, and that's a good evaluation. You said you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Nah, I mean, I think you woke up with a clear mind, Keith. It's tough right now. Like when you look at this class, because again, they're some of the top guys, right? Like even with Luther Burden, like he this past Saturday, for those who check the box score, like he had a solid game box score wise. He would have had a much better game if they didn't call back his 70-yard touchdown. You know what I mean? Like it's just like right now, it's just college football right now is just in a weird spot.
No,
like,
it is.
Overall.
And I mean, if you ask me, that's the draft storyline, but like just a college football storyline is I don't know who's good or not, right? Like we had this past week, was it 4 of the top 10, maybe 5 of the top 10? Well, it was 4, and then Miami pulled it out at the very last second, right? It's supposed to be 5 of the top 10s lost. Like Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, DP. Then we went on, Michigan lost to Washington. Tennessee, who was ranked number 4, lost. Missouri lost. So it's like all of these teams.
Crazy.
Yeah, like, and then this is off of Ole Miss already has a loss. LSU already lost to USC. So like, and I'm mentioning those teams because that's the teams that's about to get moved up, right? Then USC had their second loss of the season already. So it's DP is crazy. Like it's just a wild situation. And there's no, like Georgia, right? They looked awful against Bama the first half, right? And then look better. But outside of that one half of football, DP, Georgia has not been its dominant self. Like even when they played Kentucky, Auburn was a close game, right? Coming off of they lost to Alabama. Auburn was a close game until like the middle of the third quarter, I believe. So like all signs point to maybe it's Texas.
Maybe, I mean, Quinn Ewers coming back. You got the game against OU, I think, coming up. And then they have Georgia, right? And I think right. And Texas has that type of speed. Like Ryan Williams gave you problem. You got Isaiah Bond, you got Ryan Wingo, you got I forget the young man that they got as another transfer.
Matthew Golden from Houston.
Like they have speed everywhere. You know what I mean? Like everywhere for Quinn Ewers. And or if Archman is playing, hopefully I want Quinn to play so Quinn can go ahead and get his moments, go to the NFL draft. Then Arch, you can take over and we can go ahead and be done with that shuffling of seats. But yeah, I think we don't know. I don't know what's going on and why it is the way it is right now, Keith, where we don't know who's the real, like, how there's always a conversation of pretenders and contenders. And like when you see Bama and Georgia, you're like, man, look at these players. Like, yeah, they're contenders. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna make a bold statement right now, Keith, just based off of the first 6 weeks. This playoff, this 12-team playoff, this might get spicy, Keith.
Oh no,
we might see some upsets.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going with this. That not even the upsets, like ranking these guys is going to be ridiculous. Like I feel like in the past we had to go to 12 because there was like 4 for sure teams and then a couple other teams after that. Yeah. This one, the whole thing is just up in the air, right? Like even between like how y'all gonna make a case for 3 and 4? Like Alabama, even if they go run the tables, like that loss to Vanderbilt is probably going to stand pat as a bad loss, right? How bad Georgia looked against Bama, right? And then some of these teams, DP, with their losses, you can't even for sure say that they won't lose again, right? Like Michigan has 2 losses on the season so far. That's their second loss, right? And you can't say that, hey, with the way this offense looks, right, and how everything is not gelling, that they won't lose again. Alabama, the way
got Oregon coming up. They got Oregon and Ohio State. They're going to lose again.
Alabama, the way that defense looks, right? You can't say for sure that you are 100% confident that they won't lose one more game, right? Georgia, right? You can't say that they won't lose one more game, based on how their offense looks. Like I said, Ole Miss, LSU, like we could keep on going.
Keith,
with all these teams.
I gotta ask you, when you think about Georgia, like even Bama too, like I think Lawson's the linebacker at Bama that everybody really pays attention to.
He's a good player. He could ball.
Good player. But like when you think, besides Malachi Starks at Georgia, right? Defensively, like get away from the D-line. Get away from the D-line and Jalen Walker and Michael Williams. Who is who? Like, where's that top corner? You know what I mean?
And I was thinking about that, and that's what remember we talked. Was that yesterday's episode? We talked about like when I tweeted out when Alabama and Georgia played each other, and it seems like both quarterbacks were just like, you know what, somebody down there. They were not worried about the defensive backs. And when like it's been since how long since we've had. Probably for Bama, it's been since Patrick Surtain. I don't want to misspeak, right? Like a first round corner, I believe.
Yeah, because Kool-Aid went second round.
Yeah, Kool-Aid was second round. Or Terrion, I'm tripping. Terrion.
Terrion.
So they did have Terrion. But just overall, like just dominant secondaries. And you feel like, back when it was like 2015 and it was just like, nope, don't test him, don't test him, don't test him. And then Georgia right now is kind of in the same situation. Like who is there? Top guy, right? That's that corner that's balling out. So we'll see, DP. And I think we said we had one storyline, but I think we ended up giving our NFL draft about 5 different storylines, right? We just kind of went off on a tangent there. But DP, coming up next, man, is Dame's Dudes. We're about to have some fun. Who is DP going to let in the club? Who is he kicking out? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And guys, you know the way that I do. If you have a party of 4, 5, even 6, and you're trying to find seats consecutively side by side, it can be a hassle. And Game Time Picks helps you remove all that fluff and unnecessary hassle. Guys, also what I love about Game Time, they show the views for all the seats in the venue, so before you purchase your ticket, you know what vantage point you're going to have. They have lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Guys, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Guys, what time is it? Simple. It's game time. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, if you're new here, it's time for Dame's Dudes with Keith. Gets to grill me about 5 players that we got to figure out. Can they get drinks? Can they get some food? Can they get into the club? We'll see. I don't really know if we're going to get that or not. We don't know how many are going to be able to go in, but we'll see. So let's get it started. Keith, who's number one? Who's first up?
DP, let's start this thing off, man. And we're going to go with Wake Forest edge rusher, Jashin Davis. Is he in the club, out the club?
I like Jashin. You know, Keith, he has one sack on the season, but this is a guy that typically lives in the backfield. Like this season, 14 pressures and hurries. And then coming off of the game against NC State, one quarterback hit. He had like 5 tackles in that game. He defended the run well. He had 7 pressures in that game. He's listed at 6'3", 270. And he I'm blanking on the name, but he used to play for Buffalo. Oh, Boogie Basham. Like it brings me back to Boogie Basham when he was at Wake Forest, one of those densely built, just like high motor, physical, strong, fluid edge rushers. And that again, like I said, the edge rush group I think is going to be fine, or the edge rush defensive end group is going to be fine. But this is a guy that no one really thinks about, talks about. He's kind of been on my radar since last year. Yeah, I'm letting him in the club. I like what he's been doing this season.
Nah, okay, cool. That's a name for everybody, right? Probably off the radar, but just moving forward and stuff. Hey, this is a guy that has the opportunity to make some noise for himself. And you talk about what we always say, right? You get to that Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl situation, people are able to body profile you and get you in a certain situation that elevates your draft prospect. DP, this is another name that's off the radar, but this guy is balling. Pittsburgh quarterback Eli Holstein.
Oh yeah, he's in the club. I like this dude a lot, Keith. Like, and it's crazy because we talked about Pitt, and UNC, and then like when we did, I think was a make a statement, a second tier prospect on Friday. You brought up Amarian Hampton and this game against Pitt and how it could be a tough game. Like Eli Holstein is a baller, 6'4", 225. Like, and when you see the fact, and just for on the season, Keith, he's got 48 carries, 265 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns. Like, he's got 2 games back-to-back over 75 yards rushing at 6'4", almost 230. He's got a big arm. He was a former 5-star recruit to Bama. He didn't feel like sitting.
Yeah, he's from Louisiana. Like, if that means anything, you know what I'm saying? We produce the best athletes in the world. Right. So yeah, he's right here. But
let's pivot from that. I definitely did not know he was from Louisiana until you just said that. But I mean, he was a big part of the reason they were able to beat North Carolina. North Carolina, that game was back and forth pretty much all game until Pitt was able to pull away. 25 of 42, 381, 3 touchdowns through the air. He had a rushing touchdown. He had 1 interception in that game. I just think that when we talk about the 2026 quarterback class, we talk about Nico Imaliava. We talk about Quinn, not Quinn, but Arch Manning.
DJ Lagway.
Keep your eye on, Eli Holstein. Like, that young man's got all the tools and he gets it done. He's
I'm excited to get eyes on him once again, because like I said, I was familiar with him because not only from Louisiana but from Baton Rouge. So he was always a young man that was always aware, and I think he played baseball too, like a dual sport athlete. And he might have a brother. Yeah, might have a brother if I'm not wrong. But DP, let's keep this conversation going. And we have another quarterback. I think I know where this is going. Quarterback from Missouri, Brady Cook. Is he in the club, out of the club?
Yeah, he's out of the club, man.
Oh, Brady, come on, baby.
Yeah, no, you better find the Brady bunch because this is not going to work today. 13 completions off of 31 attempts, 42% completion percentage, only 1 touchdown, 186 yards, sacked 6 times, QBR 25.6. That offense looks so out of sorts. Now it would have helped if, like I said, it would have helped if they didn't call that illegal man down the field penalty when Luther Burden had that big 70-yard touchdown pass, and then after that, I felt like it truly unraveled at the seams. Luther Burden was upset. He's like got a towel on his head. He's pissed off. He's aggravated. It just seemed like a team that lost its way, and Texas A&M were just like sharks in the ocean, and there was blood in the water. They sensed it. They went to where the blood was going, and they kept chomping. And you know what I mean, to a blowout victory. Brady Cook being the senior, I expect him to get some invites at one of these, all-star events to be able to kind of showcase himself. But yeah, he's not getting in the club. That was a tough game, man.
All right, cool. Let's keep this thing going and flowing. Next up, Arizona cornerback Takario Davis. Is he in the club? Out of the club?
Coming off of this game, Keith, he is not in the club this week. He had a rough performance. Targeted 7 times, allowed 4 catches, 107 yards in coverage against Texas Tech, and it just was not like there's some. I think, man, there's a lot of first round buzz for him, and I think we talked about him a couple times and compared him like Juju Brents and those big, long arm, kind of physical, like tweener corners that can play press man in the right situation where they can dictate the action and disrupt timing, but probably better off playing off coverage where they can read the breaks, stay composed, control the gait in their hips. He's definitely that type of guy. There's some stiffness in his transitions and movements when he's in man. And I kind of saw that kind of pop up in this game. So, yeah, I like Takario. He's typically he'd be in the club because he's been playing good ball this year. But coming off of, anytime you allow 100 yards in coverage, that's tough. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's tough, when you're man-to-man. So, no, he's not in the club this week.
Yeah, and I think he's just going to be somebody to pay close attention to. I know how I felt about him in the summer. I think I gave him a 3rd-round grade. And I'll probably keep it there because some of that stuff I don't think is necessarily fixable. I think there's more body anatomy than anything else, right? So, but DP, let's wrap this thing up with who? Mr. Tyler Needham, the offensive tackle from Rutgers. Is he in the club, out of the club?
Oh, man, after that performance, he is out. 6 pressures allowed, 3 hurries, 2 QB hits, and a sack. Like they don't get me wrong, Nebraska's D-line is good. Like I don't like people think about Patrick Mahomes, a little doppelganger, and Dylan Raiola over there when you think about Nebraska, but man, like their D-line is legit. And Kyle Monungai is my guy in that backfield for Rutgers. They couldn't get the run game going. They couldn't be consistent with the run game, which forced their quarterback, who I think I gave him an undraftable grade, this summer, put him in a situation where he had to throw the ball more and not have the play action to help him out. And they just could not protect. Like that defensive line from Nebraska, their pressure packages, they were feasting against this team. So no, I got Tyler Needham, man. That was an ugly performance. Yeah, he can't get in the club, man.
Well, guess what, DP? Maybe next week, right? Always to show up to the club next week and see what happens. See if you get in, or you see if you could get in, or see if you can't. Right? And that's always why they have another week to play football. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you already know we'll have more draft prospect discussion and topics on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.